Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you guys are having a great Tuesday. So you're going to be probably watching this on a Wednesday. I had a late day today, which is now Tuesday. Recording this around 10 o'clock. I had my son's school event today, so that prevented me from recording earlier. So you guys are going to be getting it a little bit late. Sorry about that. But we do have a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on in the markets. Obviously, the markets were down today. Bitcoin was up nicely today. It regained about half of what it lost yesterday. So that was good. The miners also regained quite nicely today. And then we also have the Fed FOMC meeting, which is happening today and tomorrow. We're going to get the results of that tomorrow. We'll see if we get a 25 basis points increase or if we're going to get nothing. I don't know if we're going to get nothing. I think we're going to get 25 basis points, maybe this one last time, possibly another time. But we'll see what that's going to do for the markets tomorrow when that comes out. So we'll see how that's going to affect it. But we'll also take a look at the miners today. Like the miners were up today quite nicely. Then we have quite a few things to talk about here. So we have Bitfarms is going to be reporting their first quarter results here later on this month. So we're going to talk about that really quick. Digihost provides update for the production in 2023. And then we got Marathon also provided their production update for April as well. We'll look at all that. And then we have Core Scientific providing us with their Q4 results, fiscal year 2022 results. We'll take a look at all those, what entails in those. And then we'll also take a look at the weekly Bitcoin production, or not the weekly production, but the weekly Bitcoin versus Bitcoin miners stats to see how Bitcoin performed against the miners for last week. I didn't get a chance to do that video yet, so we're going to do that today as well. So it's going to be pretty long. I'm going to put the chapters in as always, and I'm going to probably split this up into shorter clips later on for you guys to watch, probably either tomorrow or Thursday as well. Those will be going out, okay? So as always, you guys know the drill here. This is not financial advice, for entertainment only. Do your own research. And I'm investing in the following coins and companies for full disclosure. And let's get into the news here. But if you enjoy this type of content, hit the like button. Helps me out tremendously. So here's the market right now. The S&P was down 1.16% to 4,119. Dow Jones was down 1.08% to 33,684. NASDAQ was down 0.89% to 13,113. There were a lot of banking stocks that were getting hammered today a little bit because of First Republic being, well, basically sold off to JP Morgan yesterday. So that news wasn't good for the banking sector as it is. But however, Bitcoin actually kind of rebounded from that a little bit here. So it regained about half of what it lost yesterday. It was up 2.16% today to a close of 28,684. The RSI on the daily is it's not looking too bad. It's at 49 right now. Last time we were here was back at this point. Bitcoin price is a little bit higher at that point right now. So that might be a good sign there. If we look at the 4-hour chart, however, we see a little bit different story here. RSI is at 47. Last time we were back here was right around between these 2 points here. And Bitcoin at that point was actually higher. But if we go far enough back, Bitcoin was actually lower here on it. So it's a little bit mixed right now with a signal on that one. The 1-hour chart, you can see RSI is at 51. And Bitcoin at that point was between these two marks here. So it was actually lower in this time frame as well. So that's looking a little bit more positive here. And if we look farther back on it, we go back to all the way back here, we can see the Bitcoin price at that point was actually higher. So a little mixed signal as well there. So we'll see how this is going to play out going forward. We are, however, bouncing off of the support resistance line at 28,600 right now. We definitely came below it here the last day. Bounced below it, came back up a little bit here, and then we're bouncing above it and now below it again. So we're kind of fighting with that resistance line again. If that doesn't hold, when we look at the daily lines, it's also fighting on the daily lines. You can see here that it's bouncing between the 50-day moving average and the 20-day moving average as well, which is the yellow line here. And it's just kind of going down to that 50, bouncing back up and coming back down. And we've done that before as well. You can see it over here. So that's kind of acting as our support for the 50-day moving average right now. And if that doesn't hold, we may be coming down to our 200 weekly moving average, which is our red line here at around 26,000 right now. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at the time being for Bitcoin. Let's take a look at Ethereum really quick as well. We'll turn off let's see how Ethereum is forming on the daily lines as well. So we can see here that Ethereum is also kind of fighting between these two lines as well, between the 20-day moving average and the 50-day moving average as well. It goes down to the 50, bounces back up to the 20, and then comes back down. So we'll see how that one's going to play out, and we'll just keep an eye on that one, I guess. But we'll keep you guys posted if anything changes on it, okay? So that's Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the markets. Let's take a look at the miners here. The miners had a pretty good day. Annie was up today 3.56% on the day to 44 cents. Argo was up 3.55% to $1.46. BitDigital was up 6.88% to $2.02. Bitfarms was up 3.6% to $1.15. Cypher was up 7.62% to $2.26. CleanSpark was up 11.4% to $3.81. So it pretty much erased the losses that it had yesterday. I almost got them all back, just shy a little bit here. Cores was up 4.59% to 37 cents. Digihost was up 11.18% to $1.69. DMG was up 0.25% to 21 cents. Greenidge was up 2.59% to 47 cents. Hive was up 2.62% to $3.13. Hut 8 was up 4.82% to $1.74. Iris Energy was up 6.27 to $3.90. Marathon was up 8.77% to $9.55. Mawson was up 0.34% to $2.99. Riot was up 11.98% to $11.78. That erased all the losses from yesterday as well. So that was good there. Soluna was up 1.79% to 20 cents. Stronghold was down 2.18% to 89 cents. And TerraWolf was up 6.59% to $1.78. So overall, pretty good day for the miners as it was. And let's take a look at the network hash rate here a little bit. And let's refresh this really quick. And we can see that the 7-day average has come back up to 345 million terahashes. And that could be based on, depending when Marathon plugged in all their miners. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But also we got the 1-day average here. We had a huge spike. Oh, wow. So we reached actually a new high here of potentially going up to 440. Wow. 440 million terahashes per second. So that's definitely a new record high for it. And then we've come back down here to 312. So quite a big swing here in the last 24, 48 hours as it looks like. Okay. And that's could be based on Marathon plug-in miners, others plug-in miners as well. That's obviously driving it, but we'll take a look at that in a minute here. Okay, so that's that. Let's take a look at our first story here, which is going to be on Bitfarms. So Bitfarms is going to report their first quarter 2023 financial results on Monday, May 15th, 2023. So that's basically in 2 weeks. They're going to do that before the market opens. So we'll get that information then. We'll talk about it in the afternoon. I'm going to see if I can get on with the conference call, hear what's going on there, but that's going to be at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So my time will be around 10 o'clock. I'll see if I can make it or not. We'll see. If not, I'll see if I can get a listen to it afterwards, if it's available by then. And then we'll talk about it afterwards as well. Okay. So that one's easy. Digihost here provides April 2023 production updates. Let's take a look at what's going on here. So monthly production highlights for April 2023, mined approximately 75 BTC, but that is a combination, and here's what the details are of it. So of the 75 BTC mined, approximately 61 were self-mined, with the remainder under JV hosting partnerships. I got to look into this JV hosting partnerships. I'm not sure if they're getting more than 50% or 51%. If it's under 50%, I believe that it goes in as an asset category. If it's over 50 or 51%, that goes in as a revenue category, I believe. So I have to look into that one. Right now, I'm just keeping track of their self-mining, not the JV hosting partnerships that they are in. Okay. Production of BTC mined is expected to continue to ramp up in Q2 as the company completes the infrastructure set up at its recently acquired site. And infrastructure installation has been completed at the company's other 2 sites, so that's good news there. And let's see here. Consistent with management ongoing commitment to avoid equity dilution for its shareholders, the company has continued to monetize a portion of its BTC production to fully fund its energy costs, which is good. And operation update. As a result of the company's recent site acquisition in Q1, Digihost consolidated operating capacity across its 3 sites has increased to approximately 100 megawatts, representing approximately 2 exahash of computing power, which is good. So they can get to 2. They're about 1 exahash right now. The company projects the total capacity will be fully deployed by the end of Q2 2023. So that's really good. I mean, we're already in the second month of Q2 now. So we only have really 2 months here before they can get to possibly 2 exahash, which would be nice to see. And the plan will continue flexible operations to ensure that 24/7 dispatchable electrical supply is made available to upstate New York area residents, businesses, and industry to mitigate impacts of power interruptions. So that's also good news there. Okay, so let's take a look at the numbers that we do have for them. We'll go through it all. And here's Digihost right now. So Digihost is about 25.5 million shares outstanding. Stock price is $1.69. Market cap is at 43.2 million right now. Current hash rate, as they reported, was 913 petahash, or pretty close to that, right around 900 petahash or something like that. I believe they reported, what did they report? I think they reported it here, 900 petahash. So I'm a little bit higher than that. I'm at 913, but close enough. Future hash rate is going to be about 1.1 exahash. They're supposed to get to 2. We don't have any news on miners being purchased, so when that does come out, we'll update this as well, but they're saying they can get to 2 exahash as it is. So currently they have about 231 exahash left to install, but if you include the getting to 2,000, that would be another basically 1,000 on top of that. So 1,231 potentially to get there, and you can see their BTC production here as it is. It has increased here nicely in April from March, which is always good to see. They have been coming down ever since January, which wasn't good to see, but they did pick up a little bit. Their hash rate grew as well. So they increased BTC production by 5. And you can see here that their BTC value that they currently hodl is only 1.24% of their market cap, and the rest is their hash rate, I guess you could say. Hash rate left, we already talked about this. BTC hodl is 19. BTC sold for the month was 54. And they mined 61 BTC, so that's all there. Now, BTC efficiency is come down a little bit here to 66.81, but we're seeing that because of the network hash rate increasing, and I expect to see this for the other miners as well. We'll see what the new norm is around. Right now in March, the norm was around mid 80s to higher 80s was the norm for the miners, and that were really efficient. So this is definitely down from that, and we'll see where they end up at. BTC hodl we talked about has increased here a little bit to 19, so up 6 from March, but it's way down here from their main numbers at 638. They came down all the way to 111 in January, and then down some more here in February, March, and April. You can see how much they sold BTC in the months. So 417, 137, 127, 70, 117, 81, 44, 65, 157, 56, and 54. And hopefully we'll kind of maintain this right around the 50, 60 mark, somewhere around there, which would be good to find to fund operations and things like that. Okay, hash rate and revenue. So hash rate has grown nicely here in April, 900 petahash. They said I got them at 913. That's about a 160 petahash growth for them, which is good to see. Their monthly BTC mined revenue has also increased to 1.76 million here from 1.4 in March, and that's always good to see that that is growing as well. And then their BTC sold value, they sold about 1.56 million in April as well. And then the last 4 quarters in revenue, we've already talked about that. You guys can take a look at it at the chart here. But we've covered those in the past. And we've covered all these over here as well. We'll take a look at a couple of things here as well. And that is on what they were actually mining for April. So the ones that got installed as far as miners, we installed, it looks like 155 of these 102 terahash miners and 1,415, roughly, give or take a little bit here, of these 102 terahash miners as well. They were operating for about 10 days, give or take a little bit here, and the rest were operating for about 30 days in the month here. So a little bit of curtailment there, but not much based on my calculations, and my calculations are just a best guess estimate right now on all these guys here. And we are using the average Bitcoin price for the month of April here, along with the network hash rate being averaged out as well from the starting point to the ending point of the month as well. Okay, so that's those information there. So currently we're looking at also their institutions and analyst ratings. We don't have any analyst ratings for them as far as buy, hold, whatever they might be. So those are all at 0. We do have institutions buying into them. Actually, none of them bought into them in the last month. We still have 25 institutions owning them with 2.3 million shares, and that equates to about 8.12% of the shares outstanding right now. Based on all of this information, we can see that the last 3 quarters, and those are going to be, let me see here, those are going to be, yeah, we're using the last 3 quarters that are actually reported here. I could probably update this and use the current numbers. That's not going to change much, I don't think. Why don't we do that? Let's see here. We'll just update these numbers here really quick. So the last quarter, Q1, is an estimate of what they could be generating revenue, along with the current quarter that we're in. That's also an estimate right now as it is given. Right, things may change depending where Bitcoin price goes up and down. So this is just an estimate. Do your own research as always. And then let's see, current quarter revenue. We'll update that as well. Bring that down to the current quarter that we're in, so that we're getting the most recent numbers. So here's where we're at. PE of 5, 50% net income from gross profit, or gross revenue, sorry. I'm looking at $1.89 right now. They're at $1.69. They're slightly undervalued. They have gone up quite nicely here in the last couple months, ever since they bottomed out. They're up, I think, 200, 300%, something like that. We'll take a look at the numbers that we do have here on the charts when we look at the weekly performance of the miners along with Bitcoin. But right now, it's kind of looking like they are just slightly undervalued to potentially being pretty closely valued where they should be. So they are getting, I'm using a P of 5 because they're low growth, low hash rate right now. But I think the institutions might be valuing them a little bit more here. They're currently at 2.24 based on that number there. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm looking at. I do think they're slightly undervalued. They need to obviously continue to grow to 2 exahash is going to be nice. I'd like to see them get to closer, maybe to 5. But overall, they've been doing a pretty good job here growing as it is. So as long as they can continue doing that and growing through the remainder of the year as well, and then into the halving event, that's definitely going to help them out after the halving event when that happens. Okay, so let me know what you guys' thoughts are on Digihost down in the comments below. Love hearing from you guys there. And let's take a look at the next one. Next one is going to be on Marathon. So Marathon also provides their Bitcoin production for April 2023. Got some interesting things here for them. They grew really nicely here in the month, but the production for Bitcoin is a little lethargic, you could say, on it. It should have been much higher, I would think, from where they are, but we'll take a look at all the numbers that we do have on them. So here's management commentary. So we produced 702 Bitcoin in April, which is a 134% increase year over year, but a decrease from the prior month due to upward adjustments in the network's difficulty rate and to a lesser extent curtailment activity. I think this is actually possibly more to an extent of the curtailment than anything else. And then April having one less day than March. Okay, so then that would have been only 20 some Bitcoins less potentially. And the impact of luck factor. So now they're including the luck factor in here as well, which is kind of strange that, and they put out a reference to a Lux, I think it was Luxor mining, the article on that one, which is kind of interesting to say that, your chances of mining are luck, which a lot of it is. A small part, I think, is luck. But if you have a large hash rate and you're in a good mining pool, your chances of having continued daily production of Bitcoin should be much more, not granular, but what's the word I'm looking for? Much more steady supply of that coming in, right? So they're also attributing luck factor, which I think is kind of strange to it. And then in addition to increasing our hash rate, we also witnessed our first domestic deployment of immersion mining coming online in Jamestown and North Dakota. So that's all great there. But like I said, this is a little weird that they're including the luck factor in that one. Okay, continuing on here. With 17.9 of our targeted 23 exahash already installed and operational hash rate consistently increasing, we remain confident that we are on track to achieve our primary target of 23 exahash near the middle of 2023. So that would be somewhere around at the end of June, July, somewhere around there. So only a couple months away from that. They did grow really nicely here this month, but the production wasn't there for Bitcoins as it is. So Bitcoin produced so far this month, or in April, was 702. And that is a decrease actually from March. So that was a little strange there. Average BTC produced per day was 23.4. Operational energized hash rate was 14. So that is definitely a huge growth for them. They should have been mining a heck of a lot more. And then here's how they're explaining it. So number one, hash rate defined as the amount of hash rate that could theoretically be generated if all mining servers that have been operational energized are currently in operation, including mining servers that are temporarily offline for maintenance or similar reasons. Hash rates are estimates based on the manufacturer specifications. All figures are rounded. So that's kind of how they're calculating it. And then let me see here. What else do we have down here? There it is. As of May 1st, Marathon holds a total of 11,568 BTC, all of which are unrestricted. So that's good. The company opted to sell 600 BTC during the month of April and intends to sell a portion of its Bitcoin holdings in future periods to support monthly operations, manage its treasury, and for general corporate purposes, which is good also. I like that strategy that they're selling at least a pretty sizable portion of it to fund operations, things like that, growth, instead of relying on shareholders and diluting the heck out of them. So I like this approach a heck of a lot more. Okay, and I think that's it for that one. Let's take a look at what we do have for them, and then we'll get into core as well. So Marathon, I updated this to the latest charts here just a day or two ago, and I had to update it again with the latest information that we do have from them. So currently we have about 167 million shares outstanding. Stock price is at $9.55. They have a market cap of about 1.6 million roughly on that one. So good market cap for them. Current hash rate about 14 exahash. Future hash rate is going to be 23. They have about 9 exahash left to energize. They are about 60% operational right now. And we can see their BTC HODL position right now is valued at about 324 million based on the current month average Bitcoin price as it is. Okay, Bitcoin production here, you can see that they peaked quite nicely in March, 825. At that time, they also only had, let me see here, they had 11.5 exahash, right? This month, they installed more miners, but they mined less. 702 Bitcoin. They should have been probably closer to the 900 mark, I'm guessing, somewhere around there. 950, maybe something like that, if things were the same as in March, but they were actually energized for the same period of time. So they're down from March to April now. So that's a pretty big, sizable decrease of 123, given that we also had one shorter day. That would have only affected it by, what, 20-some Bitcoins, if anything. So still a way larger decrease than I would have expected to see. Bitcoin value right now of their HODL is 16.91% of their market cap. 83% is their actual hashing power. Hash rate left, we talked about that. Bitcoin mined was 702. Bitcoin sold was 600. BTC HODL is 11,568, so that's all good. BTC exahash efficiency, so this is how we can see how efficient they are as far as mining through the whole month. They came down to a 50 here. They were at 71.74, which resulted in really good numbers. You can see here that anytime we get a nice little increase in production, we can also see the efficiency go up as well on that one. Bitcoin HODL, we can see that they've consistently held for the most part, started selling back in January, February, March, and April, and you can see how much they've sold here. They sold 1,501 in January, 709 in February, 751 in March, and now 600 in April. So that's good to see that that's kind of evened out a little bit here, and that's more averaging around 700 to 600 or so. Okay, so that's that. Hash rate, revenue. Hash rate, you can see, has done a really good job ever since June and July of last year. We talked about this in the previous video where they had to shut down their antenna facility because of a summer storm that went through there. And in August, they picked up a little bit here to 3.2, 3.7 in September, had a nice increase, doubled it almost in October, or did double it, almost doubled it, to 7 exahash, stayed there for a couple months, then started to ramp back up at 7.3 in January, 9.5 in February, 11.5 in March, 14 in April. So really good growth here in the last couple of months, and that's good to see here. We can see that also in their value. So this is the monthly Bitcoin revenue that they generated. And we can see that they bottomed out in July of about 1.5 million, went up to 12 million here in October, and then came back down in November a little bit. December went up as well. They did some curtailing here. It looks like November, December, and then January was up 13.9, February 15.9, March was 20.7, 2 million, and then they're down a little bit here in April, 20.25. They should have generated more, but I think it's because of curtailing that had the effect on the revenue there. Okay, Bitcoin sold value, you can see that they've been selling 30 million, 16 million, 18.8, 17.3 million. So roughly around 17 million in overall last couple months that on average have been selling. Last 4 quarters revenue, we've talked about this before. We'll see what that ends up for being for Q1 here. Q1 right now I think is estimated at 50.55 million, which is a nice increase from Q4. And it's still almost as high as it back in Q1 of 2022 here. Operating costs, we've talked about this before too. Those have been coming down a little bit here, which is good to see as well. Other metrics, cost to mine Bitcoin has come down in Q4. We talked about that as well. Bitcoin mined quarterly has gone up nicely as well. Should get a nice boost here, especially into Q1 as well. Debt to equity, we covered that. Current ratio, we covered that as well. Total current assets, we covered all this, and total current liabilities as well. So right now, let's take a look at what we actually installed as far as miners here for them. And we can see that here on this chart in April, we installed, based on my math here, about 14,140 of these 140 terahash miners, and these 3,720 also these 140 terahash miners. I could probably combine those together. But those have mining for maybe 8 days or so, roughly, and the rest was only mining for about 21 days to get into the 20.258 million, which is valued here. Based on the amount of Bitcoin that they made, Bitcoin network or Bitcoin average price for the month. That's kind of what I calculated for them to be making right now in April. And that's how I was able to calculate what they were actually mining or how many days they were mining. Could be up a little bit here or down a little bit, depending on how many days these new miners were actually mining. We don't know when they got installed. If we did know, that would definitely help. And we'd be able to make the math a little bit better. But right now, it looks like they were down for about 9 days for curtailing, roughly around there. And that's why the production is way down. And they've never really had a good, strong month of production here as far as being close to like a full month of production. March, they were at 26 days based on my calculations. And Here you can see that in February they were at 23 days. In January they were at 27.9, so pretty close to that. They were only, what, 2-3 days away from mining fully for the month. But this is definitely a lot of curtailing on it. One thing that makes me think, well, I don't know yet. I don't know if this is a pattern yet. We'll see if it continues on into May. And then June, obviously, we get into the hotter months. I'm pretty sure they're going to be curtailing more then as well, as they did last year also. And the other thing here to think about is, with Marathon installing a lot of miners in Texas, Riot, other guys as well, is they're going to be putting a lot of demand, obviously, on the grid there. And with all that demand, is it going to be more likely that these guys are going to be curtailing more now that they are using also more electricity potentially? Just something to think about. I don't know yet. We'll see how that's going to play out, but that's just kind of something that's spinning in my head right now. Okay, so that's what we have going on. And looking at the institutions here, we can see that institutions did decrease a little bit here to 317 from 321. And shares decreased a little bit as well from 52.6 million to 52.2 million. And percentage went down to 31.25 from 31.5. So not a major decrease, but some have sold out, potentially because the stock has gone up quite nicely in the last couple of months. So maybe they're just taking profits on it. Also, we got a little bit of a change here as far as analyst ratings. We have still one strong buy rating, 3 buy ratings now instead of 4, and we have 3 hold ratings. So it looks like somebody has stopped covering them potentially. 0 underperformed, 0 sells, and the price target is still $20 there. The average went up to 13.3, and a low went actually up to $7. So that's good there. So they're thinking the high is $20 on that one, and a low of $7 right now. Based on what I'm seeing here, and this is, I want to make sure that I'm talking about the right numbers. So we're still using the numbers from last quarter here, which I can update this to use the numbers from this current quarter. Or actually, let's see here. Actually, we are using the Q1 numbers, Q4, and Q3 numbers, and we're using the actual current quarter that we're in now, which is really an estimate number, along with the Q1 numbers. Based on that, we're looking at a combined total revenue of 173.1 million, 50% net income from gross revenue, that's 86 million, PE of 20. I'm looking at $10.35. They are $9.55. Analysts are looking at $20 for them. That would give them a PE of potentially going up to, that'd be a pretty high PE here. PE of 37, 38, 39, almost 40, right? To get them to that number, to the high number. But if we go down to where the PE is, let's see here, 20 for the 75% net income from gross revenue, then we're looking at $13, which is kind of what they're looking at here. That's still at 27 PE. They would be undervalued at that point, given their growth. I can definitely see them getting to that easily with Bitcoin price going up in value as well, but they definitely have to get the growth into it as well. So I do think that they are still undervalued nonetheless on that one. Okay, that's kind of what I'm looking at. But normally I use a 20 PE or lower just to be pretty conservative on my estimates here. I don't want to be overly optimistic on these guys or anybody else for that matter. I think the 20 is kind of my cutoff part where I go, but then also it can go up much higher depending on where Bitcoin goes in value, and we've seen that in the past as well. So overall, great job on the growth. They have to, well, curtailing is going to be difficult for them because they are doing a lot of hosting or using hosting providers for that. They may have to curtail when required by ERCOT or some of the other municipalities that they deal with. So that's kind of maybe out of their control a little bit. But overall, if they could get that curtailment down, get production to where it's closer to being a full month, that would have a huge impact on their revenue and obviously on the stock as well, I would think. Okay, but overall, huge growth, nicely done here. The last couple of months have been great for them as far as growth is concerned. If they can keep that going towards the middle of the year, I think they can absolutely get there to the 23.3, but we'll see, right? Okay, so that's it for that one. Like I said, great job by them, but a little concerning on the Bitcoin production as it is for the month being lower. All right, next, let's take a look at, we have Core Scientific. So Core Scientific provided their numbers for fiscal year 2022. I copied all the numbers over into my spreadsheet. We'll take a look at what that all entails. Obviously, they are in bankruptcy right now, so they are very, very risky. If anybody's invested in them, you want to be careful not to invest more than what you're willing to lose with them, because it is very high risk, but very high reward potentially as well there. So I wouldn't invest any more than I'm willing to lose on them, okay? That's kind of what I'm trying to say here, and always do your own research on these guys. All right, so let's take the numbers that I do have for them as far as how things stack up now. So we do have all the numbers here before. We only had the 3 quarters prior to that. We can kind of take a look at it here, just an overview really quick, and then we'll get into the actual numbers here. So last 4 quarters revenue, they were down to 74.4 million. This is just on their self-mining. Yes, this is on their self-mining, I believe, self-mining. And that's down from the Q3 here, which is expected because Bitcoin price went down in Q4 to about 15,000 and a half before it kind of bounced up a little bit here. And then also last 4 quarter operating expenses, at least it stayed relatively the same to where it was in Q3, went down a little bit, but still relatively high for these guys. $115 million is a lot, but they do have a lot of operations going on. Okay, so that's that one there. Cost of mined one Bitcoin has come down a little bit here to 28.2 from 30.9. Bitcoin mined quarterly has been growing nicely here ever since Q1, and it's consistently grown up. Debt to equity has become a negative now, 2.9731. We'll take a look at the reason for that, possibly why. And then the current ratio, higher is better, obviously. That has come up a little bit here in Q4 as well. Total current assets has come down to only 85 million from 213. But total current liabilities in Q3 went way up to 1.2, almost 1.3 billion. But that has come down here. They switched it over to another area, which we'll discuss here in a little bit here. Okay, so that's kind of the quick overview of it. Let's take a look at the actual numbers here that we do have for it. We'll get into the metrics here as well that I do on these guys as well. So current assets, cash and cash equivalents was down to 15.8 million from 29. That's not good. Restricted cash actually went up to 36 from 8. So that's good. Accounts receivable went down to 234,000 from 2 million. So that's not good. Accounts receivable from related parties also went down to 23,000 from 895. Deposits on equipment is basically zero there from 97 million. So that got all paid out. It looks like digital assets was only 724,000 from 19 million. And then prepaid expenses and other current assets was down to 31.8 from 55. So total current assets overall went down to 85 million from 213 million. That's always a concern there. But we've seen that with other miners as well because Bitcoin price has been coming down. So that has had a huge impact on it as well. And then when we look at property, plant, and equipment, that's only 691,000 or 691 million compared to 1.1 billion that they had in Q3. Operating lease right of use, that's a new one there that got added in at 20 million, 20.4 million. Goodwill, nothing at the end here. Intangible assets was up a little bit here to 1.7 from 1.4. And then other concurrent assets was down to 9.3 from 32.6. So overall, total assets is down to 807 million from 1.4 billion. Okay, liabilities here. Accounts payable went up to 53.6 million from 43 million, and that has been coming up here, so that's not always good. Accrued expenses and other is down at least 17.9 million from 102 million. Deferred, let me see what else we have here. Operating lease liabilities, current portion, that's 769,000, so that's a new one there. Deferred revenue went down to 76.689 from 80.2. Deferred revenue from related parties was down to 496,000 from 6.9 million. Derivative warrant liabilities is down to 0. Finance lease liabilities, current portion is down to 0. Notes payable, current portion is down to 36.2 million. And you can see here, this is where they had the notes payable. Current portion was 977 million. That got them total current liabilities in Q3 was 1.2, almost 1.3 billion, where it's only now 186 million currently in Q4. So that was a good decrease there. But that got moved over to the liabilities here. So you can see here from here, it looks like it went down to here. So liabilities subject to compromise. Not sure what that means. If anybody knows what that means, compromise, I wonder if that's part of the bankruptcy proceedings things. That's at 1.02 billion right now. So that's a new one that was added in here. Finance lease liabilities is down to 0. Notes payable is 0 as well. Other non-current liabilities is down to 2.2 million from 41. So that's good there. So total liabilities only went down to 1.2 billion from 1.3 billion that we had. So it looks like they paid down possibly about maybe, 100 and some million or so. Then we got shareholder equity here. Stockholder equity, total liabilities and stockholder equity is at 807, down from 1.4. And we actually have a negative here, 409 million for total stockholder equity compared to 73 million in Q3. So that's not good there. Revenues. So when we look at revenues here, so hosting revenue for customers was 35,827 million. So that was actually up a little bit here from Q1. Hosting revenue from related parties was down to 6.795 from 9.18. Equipment sales was down to 0. Equipment sales to related parties was down to 4.1 million from 29 million. And then digital asset mining revenue, this is their own digital asset mining, was down from 80.4 million to 74.4 million. So down 6 million on that one. Total revenue came in at 121 million for Q4, 162 million from Q3. So that's definitely down. That's not good there. And then profit margin sales, we won't get into that. Cost of revenue. So if we look at it here, cost of hosting services was still way up there, 49.867 million. They only generated 35. That's a losing business there for them. That's why I hate hosting so much. Maybe I can increase this, get this for you guys as well, so you guys can see it a little bit better. But this is why I hate hosting. Hosting is just like a money pit for not only for them, but also for like Riot. They're losing money on it, and it's not. I don't think it's a great business for that. And then we look at let's see here, cost of equipment sales. So that was at least, let me see, equipment sales. That was 0. That was definitely not good there. They lost basically 3 million on that. Cost of digital asset mining was 115 million. They generated only 74 million, right? That's why they're in the trouble that they are in, because they're just negative on all this stuff. So total cost of revenue was 168 million. They only brought in 121 million. They're basically 47 million shy or short for making up what their costs are right there. So that's never good. Okay, gross profit, it was negative 47 million. Let's see here. What else do we have here? Gain loss from sales of digital assets. That was 19 million. So they actually had some profits from that compared to 11. So that's good. Impairment of digital assets was down 19. So that kind of did the reverse of it. Let's see what else we have here. Impairment of property, plant, and equipment. That was 531 million compared to only 59 million. So that's a big loss there. Loss on exchanges was only 14.9 million. Didn't have one in Q3. Other expenses. So research and development was 2.657 million on that compared to 6.1. So that's actually good that that came down. I still think they're spending way too much money on research and development for a quarter. Being a Bitcoin miner, you're either going to be mining whether you're using air to move it through, or you're going to be using immersion cooling or something like that. There shouldn't be spending 2.6 million in research and development. At least I don't think so. Sales and marketing also went way up here to 1 million from 39,000. It looks like in Q3. Why? What do you say? Sales and marketing. You're a Bitcoin miner. You shouldn't have any sales and marketing. Your best marketing is your operations, your growth, your hash rate, what your capacity is, and things like that. That's your best marketing right there. General and administrative also came down a little bit to 38.9 million from 43.3. So that's good there, but still not low enough, I don't think, for where they are right now, where it should be. It should definitely come down even more. Okay, so operating loss income was negative 636 million. The total operating expenses was 42 million here. So definitely a large chunk of it, basically a third of what they brought in, just on that alone. Let's see. Loss of debt extinguishment was 287,000. Interest expenses was 22 million. That's a lot. Fair value adjustment was 0. Fair value adjustment on derivative warrant liabilities was 4.9 million negative from 521,000. And reorganization items net was negative 197 million 405. That's part of their restructuring and bankruptcy that they're going through right now. So total non-operating income expenses was negative 179 million. Total non-operating income expenses net was negative 434 million. That is pretty close to where they were. Even, well, it looks like it's a little bit higher here than in Q3, just by several $100,000, looks like. Okay, so that's not good. Had a loss of about $6.30 for the year. $1.60 I'm calculating for the Q4 quarter, which is a little bit better than the loss they had in Q3. But nonetheless, it's still a loss. Okay, so those are all the numbers there. Let's take a look at some of the metrics that we do have on this. We'll take a look at it here. For Q4, they mined approximately 4,086 Bitcoin. Starting hash rate was about 13 exahash. They got to 15.7 exahash. Average was about 14.3. So they are massive when it comes to mining, but man, they just can't balance a checkbook, it seems like. And then you got BTC mined per average was 284. So that's coming down, but network hash rate has been going up, so that's understandable. Custom mine 1 BTC was 28,268. And that's minus depreciation, and that's actually down from the 30,000. So they still have a lot of work to do where they can get that down lower to closer to like $13,000, $14,000. And a lot of it is just overhead and salaries and everything else. Debt to equity, like I said, is negative 2.973, and that is based on this numbers here. So total liabilities 1.2 billion, and then total stockholder equity was negative, came in at negative actually on that one. That's the reason why it's coming in that way. Okay, and that's the accumulated deficit here of 2.173 billion. That's contributing to that quite a lot. Okay, so that's why that one's coming up funky. Current ratio 0.456, so that is an improvement over Q3 nonetheless. Book to value is negative 409. Price to book value negative 0.328. Enterprise value market cap less debt minus cash is 135 million. And then a beta, well, that's negative 434 million as it is. So revenue, 121 million. General and administrative compensation was 38.9 million. That's 32.08%. That still increased here from Q3, which Q2 was really bad. But I thought they were starting to get on a path where they're going to do better. But Q3 26.6, now they're at 32. For the year, they're at 33.3. They got to get this number down one way or another if they're going to restructure properly and get themselves on a good footing going forward. They got to, do right by shareholders. At least I would think they would do right by shareholders, but that's just me talking there. So overall, really interested to see what Q1 is going to look like for them, how they've been able to go after the restructuring and the bankruptcy after that was filed in December, and see what kind of changes have happened to there. They did provide some numbers there. I got to look through them for January, February, and March, their balance sheets and things like that. I got to look through that, see if we can make some sense out of that to put it all into here potentially. Okay, unless they're actually going to provide the Q1 numbers, which would be really good at that point. Okay, so like I said, this one is very high risk, also potentially very high reward. Don't put in any more than you're willing to lose on this one. And I'll leave it at that. Do your own research as always. Okay. Next, let's take a look at the Bitcoin miners versus Bitcoin for last week. I apologize I didn't get this out on Sunday. Just had a really, really busy weekend actually. So here's what we have looking right now. The green bars are how far the miners are up from their 52-week lows. The red bars are how far away the miners are from their 52-week highs right now. So Core is leading the pack here, up 839%. Right, they bottomed out around 4 cents, something like that, a couple months ago, and they've done a really good job as far as growing since then. Cypher is up 504%. They've had a fantastic growth as well these last couple months, growing from basically 0 to basically having 5 exahash of their self-mining. Then they have about a 1 exahash of mining that's a joint venture as well. So they're about 6 exahash in total. Digihost has also done a pretty good job here as far as, rebounding on the stock price, but their growth hasn't been that great. Argo up 295% also after the news came out that they're not going to be going into bankruptcy. The stock kind of rallied after that. Iris has had really good growth here as well after they returned their miners back in November, December, I think, timeframe around there. BitDigital has been growing quite nicely as well. Riot obviously has grown nicely as well. TeraWolf, another one that's grown relatively quickly here in the last couple months as well. So that's having an impact on the stock there. Marathon up 223. They've been growing really well as well. Bitfarms is up 208%. They've obviously escaped being delisted from the NASDAQ after regaining compliance, being $1 per share or higher for over 10 consecutive trading days. So that was good there. Mawson is up 176% from its bottom. Hive is up 138. DMG up 134. HUT up 129. CleanSpark up 24. Sphere is only up 94%, and Bitcoin is up only 81% from the bottom. So obviously all of these miners have done a lot, some have done a lot better than Bitcoin, but some have at least performed better than Bitcoin, but some are still way undervalued in my opinion and should do much better going forward, but we'll see. Now, as far as being away from their 52-week highs, we can see that Riot and BitDigital are getting really close here to getting back to their 52-week highs here, which isn't too far away, it looks like. So that might start to change over on us. We also can see the Bitcoin's only 26% away from there. And then we got Cypher only 30% away, along with Digihost 34%. And then we would probably have DMG 44%, CleanSpark 49%. Then we got Marathon also 46%. And then we're starting to get into the 50s here with HUT, Hive, TeraWolf as well. Then we're getting into the 60s with Iris, Bitfarms. Who else we have here? Then maybe Sphere along the way with Mawson, Argo, and then Core is still 93% away from its 52-week highs as it is. Okay, so it's kind of a nice way to take a look at the miners, see how they've performed from the 52-week lows and from the 52-week highs as well. It's kind of a nice graph to take a look at. Okay, now as far as Bitcoin weekly performance here, let's take a look at this really quick as well. So last week, Bitcoin had a pretty nice run up a little bit here. It was up 7.56% on the week. We have the following miners that did better. Digital was up 10%, Bitfarms up 11%, Marathon up 12%, Riot was up 13%, and TeraWolf was up 22% on the week. And then the miners that did a little bit less than Bitcoin was Digihost, Sphere, 3D, Core, Hut 8, Cypher, CleanSpark, Iris, DMG, Hive. Mawson was actually in the negative here, along with Argo for the week. And that's kind of how things stacked up there. If we look at the 4-week chart really quick as well, and do that descending, go here, we can see that Bitcoin was at, from 4 weeks ago, Bitcoin's up only 5%. All of these guys here did better than Bitcoin. That includes Hut up being 6, Digihost up being up almost 10, Mawson up 17, Core up 18, Bitfarms up 26, Marathon up 26, Sphere up 27, BitDigital up 30, Riot up 30, Iris up 33, CleanSpark up 60%, TeraWolf up 78%. From there, and then the ones that did worse are DMG, Hive, Cypher, and Argo. Let's take a look at the 8 weeks really quick. And Bitcoin at that point, from that point, is up 45%. So these have done worse. Hut is down, up only 42, Hive 37, Mawson up 30, DMG up 19, Argo up 5. And then we got Digihost up 50, Iris up 55, Core up 57, Sphere up 60, Bitfarms up 63, Cypher up 75, CleanSpark up 87, Marathon up 89, BitDigital up 98, Riot up 125, and TeraWolf up 206. So TeraWolf has been doing a really fantastic job here the last couple of weeks. And then lastly, we'll take a look at it as well. Let's see here, descending the 12 weeks. And then we can see here that Bitcoin is actually up 35%. The following companies have done a little bit less or worse than Bitcoin, and that's CleanSpark 32%, Bitfarms 28%, Sphere up 20%, Digihost 14, Hive up 9, Hut 6, Mawson up 2, and DMG is actually negative 4.2, and Argo is actually down 25%. So Argo was doing a little bit better in the beginning months of the year than they are currently right now. Core has done better than Bitcoin the last 12 weeks, up 42%, Cypher up 52, BitDigital up 67, Marathon up 70, Riot up 117, Iris up 127, and TeraWolf 178. So TeraWolf has done gangbusters here these last 12 weeks, it looks like. Okay, so if you invested in them 12 weeks ago, you're doing really well. Congrats to you guys. And here's how things stacked up here. On the charts, we can see we got a bunch of green here, which is kind of nice to see as well. But then when we look at the granular data on it week to week, we can see here that we've had a really good week last week. Week prior was a bad week. Prior to that was a good week. Prior to that was a bad week. Then we had 3 weeks where we were good, 3 weeks where we were bad, 1 week where we were good, 1 week we were bad, and then we had 4, almost 5 weeks, you could say, where we were in the green, doing really well in the beginning of the year after Bitcoin and the miners pretty much bottomed out at the end of 2022. Okay, so we'll see how this is going to go forward right now with the way May starting out. We were down yesterday, we're up today. We'll see what the numbers come in at for the FOMC meeting tomorrow, which will be interesting to see if we get 25 basis points or not. It'd be nice if we don't, but we'll see. Obviously, with the banks being in trouble and so forth, I think bank failure that we had in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks or so. So that's not good. And this is like the second biggest bank failure that we've had, I think, or one of the biggest bank failures that we've had in a long time. So that's not good there. I wonder how much that is putting weight on the FOMC as well. And, we'll just see what happens tomorrow. We still have probably a bunch of miners that are going to be reporting tomorrow and into this week as well. So we'll see what those numbers look like, see how they're comparing to other miners as well. And we'll dive into them as we always do. So, as always, the spreadsheets are available to my Patreon members. Thank you everyone there for their continued support. Thank you for all the YouTube members that are supporting as well. You guys will be getting the JPEGs of all the dashboards for the miners that I updated here today. That will be coming out tomorrow sometime. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe. Helps me out tremendously. I know it's been long. And like I said, I'll promise I'm going to put out these clips of just the different topics that we go into in these longer format videos. Okay? So that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, have a great day.